EP6 of Traveller Chat. My name is IMCFTraveller, and I am here with co-host George. George, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Trav. How are you doing?
Yeah, can't complain. I have a blow pop in one hand right now, and the highlights of the last Miami game, like on my iPad right next to me. So, it's a nice Wednesday night, and definitely feels weird to be recording this on a Wednesday instead of Thursday.
Yeah, and it's going to be a real short episode if we're going to be talking about the highlights from this weekend. So,
yeah, considering just how few there are.
But we'll get into it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm having a good week, kind of decompressing after that disappointing performance, and I am looking forward and a little bit hopeful for Saturday, but there are some questions, and I think we'll get to those closer to the end.
Yeah, definitely, a lot of questions heading into this weekend. Miami is losing two key players to international duty in Josef Martinez and Robert Taylor. And this comes on the heels of Miami losing 2-0 against Toronto in what was, for the most part, a pretty uninspiring performance in the fridge north. What are your takeaways from that game, George?
I think the real obvious one is how important Gregory is to this side and what his absence means, and kind of puts me in a kind of a panic mode as far as how to fill it and how to address it moving forward. Aside from that, you know, the play I think of Harvey Neville was encouraging. He wasn't perfect, but he showed some skill on the ball. He made some really nice passes that I don't think we've seen a a defensive back on this team make before, and you know just kind of nice to know what we have there, and to kind of see him get a little bit more run. Um, and then I think Stefanelli was coming to life a little bit, saw a little bit more from him, and really the only other takeaway is the fact that Joseph seems lost. He's getting service now and he's getting into dangerous spots, but he just cannot put the ball either on frame or just put it away when he has those opportunities. And so those are kind of the takeaways now, after week 4, going into week 5, that I think are really kind of pressing for the squad.
Yeah, and I mean, the point on Joseph is a good one because we finally saw him really get into those dangerous positions and chances. We saw flashes of it against New York City FC, but against Toronto, we actually saw that he had a couple of really good chances. Do anything with them? He had shots that he skied over the bar, and a couple that he either just sent straight at the keeper or just flubbed. So it's a bit worrying that kind of big name winter transfer window signing hasn't really seen to kind of gain that confidence of the lethal striker that we know he is. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes over time. And at the same time, somebody like Stefanelli finally, in my opinion, had a good match. He had a couple of really chances. He was active for pretty much the first 65, 70 minutes before cooling off and being swarmed by Toronto players. Harvey Neville, who I thought had a pretty good match overall, and in my opinion, kind of showed that no, he's not a nepotism baby. He can ball. Oh, that kid knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I fully agree. It was, to both of, to the point about Joseph and Stefanelli, you can see them starting to understand where each other want to be. Um, and much of like what we saw last year, where it took time, it took weeks upon weeks for this team to figure itself out and to gel. We're starting to see that now because that entire attacking front line is new and they haven't played together. But, I think that there was a couple of really good opportunities where Stefanelli was tucking in behind Joseph, who was making a run, um, you know, down the center of the box. Stefanelli was coming in as the trailing attacker and just didn't get service. Negri decided to rip a shot from a pretty negative angle, uh, rather than dink it into the middle where Stefanelli was sitting there with nobody around him. That would have been probably an excellent opportunity. But we're seeing some life with the attacking patterns, but we're still just not seeing enough creativity and and really vision in getting the ball to players in the right spots at the right time. Um, and that's kind of what I want to see more of. I mean, I think the person that I'm going to critique the most about that is going to be Pizarro, because as much as he's been working really, really hard and has been pretty good, not TP level good, but he hasn't been a deficit on the field. He continues to find the ball at his feet and just does not look up to make a pass and decides to try to dribble two, three, four guys. He's going laterally rather than vertically with it. And it's kind of killing some momentum. And so I really want to see him, you know, utilize some vision, get the ball played to him, and play a one touch pass and have some good combination play, because that's going to unlock him and his ability to then press forward as well.
Well, and I think, in terms of creativity, the biggest thing for this Miami squad is the return of Kampana. He's a kind of completely different striker from Martinez. He's dangerous in the air. He can hold up play much better. So by having that kind of 1-2 threat up top when Campana returns, it Miami to kind of kill you ways. We can kill you with a cross in the air and go for the tall head of Leo Campana, or we can play balls in where Campana makes a run and instead the ball goes to Josef, who can take a shot and ideally have more space because Campana draws away defenders. So, that's the biggest thing for this Miami squad, in my opinion, right now. And, Stefanelli, I think, is better by the week. I think he's kind of going over time. He's learned mates want. My good buddy Eric with a great reply here that just shows the type of player that Stefanelli is, where he has meshed well with this squad. He's a great leader and teammate. And in New York, after Gregory is potentially season-ending injury, he stayed by his side after the game the whole time until Gregory was taken off the field and off the bench. So, I think this Miami team is now really just starting to gel. They're really just starting to get to know each other. And even with the loss of a player like Gregory, I think this Miami team can do something. Oh, and especially as they get more healthy.
But
I
that's
think, I think,
here we go.
okay, listen. All right. I think the biggest thing with this team, we're missing the Higuains and the Pozuelos of the world. Just hear me out. Just hear me out. So basically, the biggest problem at the beginning of last year was not having a number 10, right? Not having the creative playmaker, the guy who has the touch. Like, no matter how old you are as a player, your touch is forever. And in 2021, Higuain showed that. He didn't run, but he had a great touch. And he was playing that false nine and he was distributing from there. And, his passes were great. We just don't have that. And I think we're running into the problem again of last year in 2022 of we don't have a 10. Listen, Stefanelli's not a 10. I may be too early to judge, but I sincerely do not believe that he's a number 10. And I think we just regressed a little bit backwards. And it's not necessarily like the Chris Henderson's fault or Neville's fault. It's not necessarily anybody's fault because people would think, oh, Pizarro is our new 10, but he's not a 10. He's a winger or a left-sided midfielder. So I think we're just left with a void. So I think we're just going to try to stay afloat until the summer, until we can get Messi. But given that Busquets is signing with Barcelona, I'm not going to get into that. I don't know. I don't know. It's just my sensation.
So Matthew, I agree with you 100%.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa.
With everything you just said. And so when I was talking with my father about Higuain and what makes him a special player, it's, when you look at Messi and you say that, like, Messi was built in God's image to, to steal a, a Ray Hudsonism. You know, if Messi was built in God's image, um, Higuain was at least touched by God. He has that kind of X factor quality that just doesn't go away.
He's world
And
class. He's
he
world
is.
class.
And I mean, we didn't see the best Higuain of his career, but what we did see in flashes and then for the end of last season was the extended run of what he can do when he's on the same page with somebody, when someone can get him the inch that he needs, because he's not going to burn from people, but if you put a ball in the spot where he can get his foot to it, he's going to put it away every single time. And even before we had a 10, even before Pozuelo came, when he was trying to play as a 10, um, and he was dropping back, he would do things on the ball in the middle of the field where he would turn, he would he would be facing one sideline, get the ball played to him. He hasn't looked over his shoulder in 6 seconds, but he would snap around and hit a cross that, on a rope that Yedlin had been busting his lungs down 60, 70 yards, and it would land at Yedlin's feet. That kind of class is forever. And we did see that. And that's, and so I agree with you that, like, Higuain, we're missing an X factor like that. Two, I also agree, Stefanelli is not a 10. He may be a false 9, he's a second striker, he is not a 10. The only player that has that quality on this team is Bryce Duke, at least that we've seen, you know, right now, and he a starting caliber number 10 in this league, and I don't think he is just yet. And that's why I think we're in the position that we're in.
See, that's what like really irks me. It's like we were like that's what irked me like this off season. Is like I remember Neville saying, "Oh, we're gonna bring in top end talent," which they did. They improved the left back position. They've improved their center back position, right? And then we got players we got top heavy with our players, but none of them have the X factor. Joseph, a post ACL injury, from what I'm seeing right now, is no longer. If he was world class, he's definitely not world class now. Campana is injured, so I don't know what to say about him. And there's a huge gap in the when we're moving forward because Stefanelli is a natural second striker, so he's going to try to occupy a similar space to Joseph. Joseph is not making runs right now. At least that's what we saw in the Toronto game. That Mans was just walking on the field most of the time, and that's what was really irking me. And then if we have Stefanelli, the quote unquote 10, he's pushing very high up, which leaves a gap in the midfield between the eights and the forwards. So it's like really interesting that like how this team is set up because now Gregory is down, the person who would normally take up that position would maybe be Mota or something like that. But
So
now
Matthew,
Gregory's down, so I'm like, there's every time we go forward, there's a gap on the top of the box.
yes. So let me ask you, because you weren't here last week, Matthew, but we talked about how to address the Gregory injury. Do you do what Phil did, which was just slide in Duke or somebody else into that double pivot with Mota, or do you change formation? What do you think? What would your kind of tactical tinkering be?
All right, I'm gonna give half an answer and then pass the baton to my dad, who clearly wants to speak right now. Me, for me, I don't think a double pivot works anymore. The double pivot was made for the two Brazilians. Now that one of the Brazilians are down, now we can't work with the double pivot. We have to move to a single pivot. But we don't have a natural six besides Ulloa. And if we play Ulloa, it's the end times. It's like I'm gonna die. My eyes are gonna bleed. Like all respect for Ulloa, but that guy is a locker room guy, nothing more. But I'm gonna pass the baton to my dad, who has his mic unmuted, and let's see what he has to say.
Oh, thank you for such an introduction, Matthew. I want to refer to the opinion as far as Pozuelo in that position. A number 10, part of their job, yes, is to attack and go forward, but they are also in charge of drawing marks down, away from the, let's say, forward positions. So that leaves or pulls marks away and leaves gaps for people like a Mota or Gregory or a Taylor or a Pizarro to fill in, which was what was happening in the last season. And we saw such great performances and great movement of players and ball when Pozuelo had the ball at his feet. So in that aspect, that's what we're lacking. We don't have that person that is dragging marks off their positions, and so it makes it very easy, as I believe Matthew said, or Trav, about Stefanelli playing too high. Well, it's not so much too high. He's falling into the the shape that the opponent has. So that doesn't help.
The other thing I think to that point, because that is an excellent point about the role of the 10 and how, especially a player like Mota, but even Gregory will jump up and start to progress when that space opens up. Pizarro and Coco aren't making runs to lengthen the defense. They're not trying to get in behind nearly as much as we were trying to do last year. And that is keeping the defensive back line in formation and together. And so we're not doing anything off the ball, it seems, to create that that kind of dynamic space that causes a defender not just to pinch towards the 10, but also for one to have to track an attacking player making that run out wide. And I think that those two things that we're not seeing either in conjunction or at all at some points during games, that's kind of what's gunking up the works in building this team being able to build out an attack and get themselves into good attacking positions.
I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but that's what Ariel Lassiter did so good at the beginning, like pretty much all of last season. He was stretching out back lines because of his athleticism. Nobody's doing that. Coco's not making runs that stretch in the back line. Um, the only person who I can maybe think about that is Negri, and he's a fullback. Like if you have your fullbacks stretching the back line when playing a back four, that's a problem because nobody, like none of our forwards are stretching the back line at all. Like every team that we played against so far, I have not seen their back line stretched at all. Maybe Montreal, maybe Montreal.
Yeah, I mean the only time that I can recall it happening was in the first half, and it was that ball that Neville played inch perfect to beat the defender who was trying to cut it out and found Coco who had made the run in behind him. And that's what ended up, I believe that was the action that led to Stefanelli's shot that was saved. Um probably what 8-12 minutes into the first half. And it worked. And part of the thing is that if you're not going to be, if you're relying on service from from your fullbacks to do that, which really that kind of service you would expect to be coming from a Duke or a Mota rather than from Harvey. That's not great, and because Yedlin doesn't have that pass in his bag. He has never I've never seen him make a pass that well over that much distance that accurately to unlock an attacking player moving forward. So I don't know. So back to the original question, Matthew, is what do you do? Do you change this formation aside from moving from the double pivot? Like what does it look like?
4-3-3. I think we have no 10. And the 4-4-2 diamond, you need a 10. We don't have one, unless we're forcing one, which is what we're trying to do. And a 4-2-3-1, you need a 10. Again, which is what we don't have.
What about
Um,
a 5-4-1?
we changed that at the Philadelphia game, and that's when Taylor scored his goal. Well, like you can clearly, like if you look back on the broadcast, you can literally see Taylor going 5-4-1. It's like gave away the tactics right there. Like the camera was right on him. But anyway, 5-4-1. Jesus.
And the reason why I asked Matthew is because we know, anybody listening to this who's watched this team over the last 2 years knows that we have the players to play a 4-3-3, right?
Oh,
Like
100%.
they're all on the bench, but
Yeah, literally.
but we can move into that formation. We're comfortable playing out of that formation. The 5-4-1 is a little bit different, and I think may play a little bit more into the strengths of some of the new guys. What do you think?
Negri. Yeah, he moves the ball very well forward, and he crosses the ball pretty nice. Um, a 5-4-1 I think would work if we play with inverted fullbacks. Oh well, in this case, wingbacks, the Pep Guardiola style, the Joao Cancelos of the world, you know. Um, but I don't think we have the right back man. In order to play that, you need. They can run. Yedlin can run, but his passing, man, ooh, it hurts, especially during the NYCFC game. Oh my god. Um, I still think 4-3-3. I don't have faith in a 5-4-1. Mm-mm. I don't think that would work. It would work off the left side, but I don't think would work off the right, given Yedlin's profile. Negri's profile, yes, but Yedlin's profile, no. No, I still stick with 4-3-3.
Well, I think that you go with a 5-3-2. I think that's ultimate. You do. You play across the back line from left to right. Agree, Mabika, Kristov, McVeigh, Yedlin, or Harvey. We don't know Yedlin's status as he is, I believe, still waiting to have his second child. Uh, it is believed that he will be available, though, just due to the fact that this is a home match, and if needed, he could, always, leave the match early or, depart to turn around and join the match. But I think you play those five across the back, and then you play Pizarro, Malta, and then either Kramashi or Uloa in the midfield, since we are without Robert Taylor this week. And then up top, you play a mix of, if it's not ready, you play Coco. They're both speedy strikers and they may be shorter in stature, but they are able to get in behind. Or, you play somebody like who should back Robbie Robinson. There's a chance that he's back this week. And kind of play balls over the top, or you even play Ariel Lassiter in the strike and abuse his pace again. What's honestly not a great Chicago side. They are on 2 points 3 games. They have not looked really impressive in either matches, and have looked kind of just weak at times.
Back five is too risky. Given Frey is down, after that, let's say Sailor goes down. Then we have Mabika and nobody else.
Well, Matthew, I think we're talking about playing a back five for one game where we're Robert Taylor, we're missing Josef Martinez, we're potentially missing
no Leo. Yeah.
No Robbie. We're missing quite a few guys, for this one match.
But do you really want to sit back with a back five, or would you say the wing backs push up really high and get involved with the attack?
They have to get involved with the attack.
They have to. I mean, even when we've been playing a back four in transition in attack, it's like a back three with, when both Mota and Gregory were healthy, Mota and Gregory dropping in and basically playing as a third center back as, Yedlin and Negri were told, you can go touchline to touchline if you want.
I don't know, man. Back five and a I don't. It doesn't sit well with me. I have bad memories of a back five.
Well, that's because your memories only go back like 5 years. So.
Oh Jesus.
I mean, I when I talk about a back five or a back three, like I'm talking about it as a as a formation to best utilize the talent that we have, right? That's available to us right now. I think rather than trying to do a double pivot and replace Gregory, who is basically irreplaceable right now, with by sliding Mota over and Duke into the formation, it makes more sense to me to keep Mota as the deep lying playmaker, and instead of dropping Duke back with him to pivot, you bring on another center back. You get that solidified defensive setting that Gregory was providing already this year. Even though we're playing a back four, in transition, we were playing as if we had three center backs a lot of times because Gregory was dropping down to cover when Yedlin and or Negri, because they both have done it simultaneously. That leaves the back line exposed with just Sergey and McVeigh. So Gregory would stay back there, and basically they were playing a flat back three. So if we're already attacking that way, it makes more sense just to slide in another defensive player and just play out of that formation and let the other attacking pieces kind of sort out what they're doing in the advance, rather than trying to play the ball out of the back and build up through Duke and Mota where it's not really working, and let one of them play more advanced. Does that make sense?
Well, or even, let somebody like Bryce Duke, where, if you have the, two wingbacks pushing high, it would allow Bryce Duke to play in the half space where, he showed last year that he can dominate. And, in this match against Toronto, where Bryce started, he really couldn't play in the half space. He had to play through the middle. He had to play in the middle third of the pitch, and that's not where Bryce thrives. Bryce thrives playing in mostly the right half space, but also the left half space. So if you want to get the best out of this squad, with the current injuries that we have and the roster we likely have on Saturday, I think you have to turn around and consider playing something like a 5-3-2 where you turn around and let Bryce and let Pizarro both play within the half space on each side of the field.
So what would, I mean, with have you taken a look at what kind of formations Chicago is going to be presenting us on Saturday?
Chicago so far to date has played, let's look at their match last week against Cincinnati, where for 46 minutes they were up 3-1 on what's a very good Cincinnati side, but then in the final 10 minutes of the match managed to allow 2 goals and only draw Cincinnati. And in that match, Chicago played a 4-2-3-1. But you have to remember that Chicago is going to be missing Bucksman himself. He will be missing from this match.
The cube.
The power cube.
The power cube. They will be missing their new CDM Torres. And I believe they're missing somebody else to international duty this week.
Navarro.
Oh, yeah, and they're missing Navarro. So, their left back, their CDM, and their number 10, they're going to be missing this week. But last week, they played without 2 of those 3 players in a 4-2-3-1 and still managed a very entertaining 3-3 draw with Cincinnati. So, is this a team that we can play a back 5 against or a back 3 against? I think so. I think somebody like Kasper Przybylko isn't great.
Przybylko.
I don't give a shit. I think he is not a great striker in this league. I think he's somebody who got the Philly effect and, looked really good in their system and now has moved to Chicago and hasn't looked great. But, they still have players that can attack on the wing in Chris Mueller, who is back in MLS after a stint with, I believe, Celtic and then coming back home. And but saying all of that, if you look at the ratings from this past weekend's match against Cincy, the lowest rated players on their squad were their double pivots and their defenders. And their goalie, who is, I believe, 19 years old.
Don't forget they bottled too. They bottled Arsenal style. They conceded 2 goals and they finished the game 3-3.
Yeah, so, I think Chicago is a very beatable side, and I think they're a side that if you want to play a back 5 against, it's going to work because it allows you to then overload their midfield and their double pivot when you aim to get back up the field.
I think we should just run them to death. It's like what? It's going to be 90 degrees that day, if I remember the weather correctly. Like, I think we do it early 2022 style. Just run them to death with Lassiter, Yedlin, the speedy players,
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you make a good point there. The high temperature on Saturday is a nice 88 degrees. However, by kickoff at 7:30 p.m., it should be back down the low 80s and dropping farther from there. But if you can play an Ariel Lassiter and run them to death, you kind of have to consider doing it.
Why? Okay, so one of the points that was made, I don't know if it was Franco or if it was Jay and Than, but we are a small team, and the Toronto game really kind of made that very evident that without Gregory in the lineup, we are not we can't be a physical team moving forward. Interjecting someone like Lassiter or Borgelin can really give us a little bit of punch, and especially Leo if he were to, if he gets to come back, that I think that kind of physicality, especially with, you know, the fact that the weather is going to move into our favor for the next 4.5, 5 months, um, that's something that this team needs to become a little bit more comfortable with. But the guys that we have out there right now, they're not going to do it because it's just not. They don't have it in their bag, and they physically can't. I mean, Joseph will mix it up with people, but he's still 5'7" at best.
Yeah, it's 5'7".
He's not. He can hold his own, but he's not going to wear down a defender in duels. And I think that that's something else that I would like to see a little bit more of, because a bit more bite in the attacking third isn't just about having, the, good shots, but it's about, you know, imposing your will on bad defenses. We didn't do that against Toronto, and that is not a good defense whatsoever. Um, and I think that that's something that we're missing, and that, I think the tactical change and adding in Alaska would do that, but he's not a physical player so much as he is, someone who's going to rely on his quickness, that will slow down the defense eventually. But I want to see somebody kind of bang around in there a little bit too.
There's a certain really tall Barcelona CDM that's 6', 6'1", who just is probably signing to renew his contract. So I can't really talk about it anymore because he plays for Barcelona. But oh, if only we
Thank
had
God.
Busquets. No, not thank God. We need a 6. Mota's not a 6. Ulloa is a bench player. We don't
All right,
have a 6
I'll have a debate with you on the pod, Matthew. So we need a 6. Do we need a 6 right now, or do we need a 6 in August?
now.
All right.
Now.
So this certain 6 foot, old as hell, Spanish CDM. When would he be able to join the club?
July.
All right. So if we needed number 6 now, why are we talking about a 6 foot, 30-year-old player that isn't going to do us any good for another couple of months?
Because
Until the
he's
point that we
Busquets.
pretty
Because
much don't
Busquets
need
equals
him.
Messi. Busquets equals Messi. That's why.
You know when you yell the same thing into the void over and over again? You know what that is?
Insanity.
Yes, thank you.
Schizophrenia.
And I enjoy that your dad is here to listen to this, because your
Hi,
dad's a
Dad.
great guy, and I think it's great that he gets to listen to you just scream the same thing into the void over and over again.
All right, Dad. Let's hear it. Would you take Busquets on this team right now? Let's hear it.
Now?
It's not the question. It's not the
That's not the
question of
question.
right now, because we can't have him right now.
All right, July. Would we have Sergio Busquets, the top 3 best CDMs in the world, right now, signed for Inter Miami in the summer?
Okay, I'm going to side with the voice of reason here, with the host, Matthew. Why wish for something that we cannot have right now? It's not going to happen. The team has to fix the central midfield, specifically the central defender. Midfielder. So don't think about it. And about Messi, stop thinking about it. Get happy, become happy, hoot, holler if he gets contracted. But why dream?
Because
Well,
the club tells me I have the freedom to dream.
Oh gee,
Whoa, good
boy,
response.
oh
I,
boy. Let me
I
let me get let me get back to you guys on team formation. Yes, Neville's got a job right now. I'm actually surprised that there's not someone that we can identify ourselves as fans, that there's a backup for Gregory. We knew this can happen at any time. We know that Mota is not really an enforcer. he has the ability, and I agree with Matthew and with the others here on the dais that he's much more of a forward midfielder. Okay, he's an aide. He likes to hang around close to the box. Now, I got some advice here from someone who played soccer for a little bit, Matthew's brother, who's listening only. He said, "Why not go with 3-5-2? And let the midfield, the five, to be dynamic and switch from 3-2 to 2-3, depending on what kind of movement and what kind of response Chicago will be giving the team." But at the moment, let me just go back to the idea of we have to have some kind of backup. Well, if we don't, then it has to be Ulloa. Ulloa is the closest thing as to an enforcer. What other players there in the midfield that can do or perform at the Gregory's level or even half of his level right now?
The only CDM on the roster is Ulloa. That's it.
Okay. And I don't think there would be a problem. You put him right smack in the middle or to the left or to the right of Mota. Or we play in a 3-5-2, and it's going to be more of a 3-3, 2-2. But and any kind of dynamic, movements that you want to, include or draw up in this formation. But if with what Trav mentioned earlier and about Chicago's rating, where their performance was very low in the defense and the midfield, then why should we be so defensive? We should go for it.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, and it's one of those things where when I talk about a five in the back, I'm talking about really three center backs. The wing backs they can be part of that five or they can be part of the midfield. I don't really. It doesn't. To me that's semantics because it I like it as a offensive tactic. With regards to Ulloa, I don't have a problem with him playing. I think that what Phil is trying to do, and I think what we all want, is to see our best 11 at at any point in time. If we're going to be committed to playing, a 4-2-3-1, he's clearly the best option to fill in Gregory's role. And we're not going to lose games because he's there. Like, he's not a bad player, but he's a band-aid. He's not, he's not as dynamic as Gregory. He's not as skilled. He doesn't have as much bite, but he will do the job. He will do the work. And that, we won't drop points because he's in the lineup. We're going to drop points because Gregory's not there. And so Ulloa doesn't bother me sliding in, and I think he deserves an opportunity if we're going to do that. But yeah,
I agree.
taking it to Chicago is really what the dynamic should be, moving forward is like this. We need to continue with the attacking identity that Phil has been talking about. We just need to execute it.
May I remind us that how many winless games did Toronto have? We broke their 9-game winless streak. We got to turn that around real quick.
I'll stop being so negative, Matthew.
I'm just facts. It's just facts.
It's 4 games. We're 4 games into the season, going into the 5th game. We don't need to panic just yet. Although Gregory is kind of worrisome in filling that spot. And that's why we're focusing on it.
Oh, if you gentlemen can indulge me, Matthew's
Of course.
mom just reminded me, please let the guys know that how upset she is that Robbie Taylor will be missing from the game this Saturday.
Oh, yeah, my mom has a thing for Robert Taylor.
I'd like to point out, speaking
I respect
of
that a
Robbie
lot.
Taylor, one of my friends actually matched with him on Bumble this week, so it's quite funny right now.
Didn't Harvey Neville get with someone in Austin?
Guys, don't be getting people's business out there like that. What are you, a bunch of snitches?
Harvey
Come
Neville
on.
actually tried to hook up with my friend while Miami was busy getting out in Austin last year.
Oh, Harvey.
Hey, go get it, boy. But yeah, I think that, for Miami, the biggest question is, how do we replace Gregory? And that's a question we're going to be asking. Until we do sign a replacement, do we sign a guy now that we're reportedly out of the race for Sergio Busquets? Do we sign a guy right now and sign a guy like, let's say,
Taras Stepanenko.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Do we sign a guy like Stepanenko who is available, can be signed immediately, and already kind of has chemistry with this squad because of his relationship with a player like Sergei Kristov? So, it's a really interesting question of what does Miami do now? What's next? And
Use our U22 initiative slots. Use one of them. It's screaming. It's there. We're only using one of them because weird MLS rules say that because that one Liga MX team I can't name took Emerson without a loan fee, it technically doesn't free up the spot. But still, we have two that are completely being unutilized right now. We gotta use one of them.
I agree with the host. We need to bring in a seasoned veteran into that number 6, number 5 spot there in the central midfield.
Quick scouting: Taras Stepanenko played for the Ukrainian and still plays for the Ukrainian national team for over 10 years. He is, I think I already said, he's 35 years old, and he also plays for Shakhtar Donetsk. So he played with Sergei Krivtsov and for about 8 years, and they're best friends on Instagram.
Yeah, I think if I'm Chris Henderson and I'm Miami, and I've been told that we are no longer in the race for somebody like Sergio Busquets, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at, Stepanenko. I'm saying to Sergey, hey man, can you get him on the phone? Let's see what we got to pay to bring him over here. And, that for me is my number one target. And then, yes, we have U22 slots available. And yes, we should be using them. But those are slots that in this league, you need to use on players who can be impactful now just as much as you can use on players who are going to, grow and potentially be sold later on. That's why Miami is using one on a player like Emerson, who, yes, he hasn't shown his absolute best so far, but he is a very promising player. He's a player that when he arrived to Miami, a lot of people were excited about him and about what he could do. So, you do need to be careful with those U22 slots because you do not want to waste them.
And let's not forget, we're still under cap constraints. Like we're not going to be clear of the Matuidi thing until next season. And so all of that kind of complicates the dynamic of just saying, let's go buy this player, let's go sign these kinds of players. I mean, I think it's clear, to get back to what we were talking about, I don't know, 25 minutes ago. When we were talking about, or when Matthew was talking about it, and I'm going to defend Matthew again, why
defend Matthew.
why Busquets and Messi have been the targets. We know that they've been the targets. That this team has been built with the idea of those two players, but specifically Messi, being the catalyst for success. Right? The team that is established has been built right now can be successful in this league, but that's not the vision that either the team has or that Henderson's been given as far as how to build the team. And that's kind of why we're sitting here with, with all of these questions about who to sign or how to sign and fill the spot when somebody like Gregory goes down, because this team was not built with that in mind. That this team was built for the summer, not for the spring. And that's, and the question becomes, do we pivot now? I don't know the answer. I don't have inside sources. I don't talk to people inside the club. I'm not an agent. So it's all guesswork from my angle. But if the team wants to build around Messi, I don't see them, filling a spot unless they are absolutely sure that Busquets, who would be a requirement to get Messi, is not coming. Right? That would be the point at which they could pivot at least that piece of the chessboard to something else.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The kind of big thing for this Miami squad is we were built around the idea that in the summer we were going to be able to add two very big names in Sergio Busquets and Lionel Messi. And as it appears right now, and this is based on reporting out of Spain, which at times has been inaccurate, Sergio Busquets is re-signing with Barcelona, and Lionel Messi is in talks to sign with Barcelona, but at the same time, he's in talks to return to PSG, and he's in talks with Miami. So the Lionel Messi dream is still very much alive, and until both of these dreams truly die, and I've said at the beginning, until both truly die, Miami struggle to make any moves because you can't make any moves with the idea, oh, we're going to need a DP for Lionel Messi, or oh, we're going to need that TAM money to sign Sergio Busquets. So that's Miami's issue. Until they're officially told, no, we're not coming here, they're handcuffed. And the question I've presented quite everybody is, would you be okay with forcing the chance at Lionel Messi and at Sergio Busquets to better the squad now for the full season? Or are you willing to wait until the summer to say, oh look, we did Messi now. They basically thirds of the season. Now we have to pivot to our other targets. And for me, if you ask me personally, I say Miami's at the point where, if Sergio Busquets has communicated to the club that he's not coming here, pivot. Look at other players. Look at Stepanenko. If Lionel Messi communicates the same thing, sometime the next week or two, so that we have time before the primary transfer window closes, that he's not coming here, then pivot. Let's better the squad now for a larger portion of the season than waiting for the summer and saying, oh man, we played 2/3 of the season without Gregory, and waiting on two players that didn't come here.
The fallout if we don't get the chance to sign Messi, the media, the fans, everyone's gonna be like, what a failure of the club. Like, I can see it right now that it's gonna be
they've been
absolute
calling
mayhem.
this club a failure since its launch, and
I know, but
with
imagine if
good
we lose out on Messi.
reason.
Well,
Imagine.
and I kind of disagree with that because look at a club like Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City believed they were extremely close to signing Cristiano Ronaldo. It went completely under the radar, and then when it was leaked, everybody said, "Wow, we didn't expect Sporting Kansas City to get Cristiano Ronaldo to the table to speak with them."
Okay.
So
Oh, wait.
I
Listen.
think no, Matthew, you wait. I think that you know you turn around and, yes, it's a failure not to be able to sign him. But let's remember, at the end of the day, this is MLS that we're talking about. Yes, we love the league, but it's still not considered an elite league to many. And the fact that we're even talking about signing a player that, 3 months ago won the World Cup and is arguably the greatest of all time, the fact that we could be this deep into conversations with them and it goes on this long, that alone is a success in my books.
Yeah, and I think it's about what the identity of the club and what the motivations are internally. Because in this league, you can build your team in multiple different ways. You can build it like a Philly and like Seattle, which is young players or, under the radar players that are solid, and you build a team that is not just competitive, but a winning side, can win trophies in this league. There are others that will build it in the way that we seem to be wanting to build it, which is with, high profile superstars. And you can win trophies that way as well. We
I
haven't hit on
understand. I
we haven't
understand.
hit but we haven't hit on the formula yet, right? If what management and ownership wants to do is to be a not just, one of the best clubs in MLS, that people who pay attention to the league, think highly of Seattle and Philadelphia. But the team with the biggest brand recognition is LA Galaxy, and they've been trash for a decade. Like, they're still the most popular team worldwide when it comes to this league. So if we want to have more teams like that, we have to take swings like this. And to Trav's point as to whether or not to wait and see what happens in the summer or to pivot right now, as much as I believe in this team, I'm okay with waiting. I'm okay with taking your shot, because if you hit, we know what's coming with that, right? We know the wave of popularity to the club, and the hopeful success that would come with a player like Messi. But even if you miss, I'm certain that there are other players that probably we would be able to attract and have them longer, and build a better squad from as a result of that pursuit of Messi. And if it means costing us another season to get to the point to get there with those other kinds of conversations, I'm okay with that. I mean, I didn't come into the season thinking that this team was going to win MLS Cup. I picked us seventh in the conference. So I'm okay with taking the shot and rolling the dice, for the long-term benefit on either side, whether we hit or whether we miss with Messi.
If you have the chance to get a goat, if you get the goat, I would take it.
Yes.
100%, 100%. Live it. Like, I'm just thinking of the media fallout. Like, oh my god, like all the Euro snobs, everyone around the league is just gonna clown us for years. You didn't get Messi because what has Jorge Mas said since, and David Beckham said since day one? We're gonna get Messi. Like, they set the standard so damn high for us that anything besides him would be considered a failure. So I can just like see the scenes on social media about like what would happen if we just didn't get him. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely worried about that. I mean, I think the very last of our worries is, what does the media think of us? I rather us field a competitive team and silence the media. We don't need to listen to what people are saying about us. If anything, put it on the wall, use it as motivation. Put those beginning of the year, Miami's going to finish, best in the conference. They're wooden spoon contenders. Put it on the wall and use it as motivation and say, not that team. So I'm not concerned about what the media says. I, personally think that, yes, Messi is the greatest of all time. He is, a player that would undeniably change the future of MLS in just one signing. But at the same time, you know, you can't waste 2/3 of a season hoping that you get him unless you say, all right, 2024, the sanctions are gone. We're going for it. And going for it starts by building in the summer window of 2023.
But I think that that's obvious, right? I mean, Pizarro's contract ends at the end of this season. Higuain is now off the books. The sanctions will have come off. Like there's no obvious dead weight, quote unquote, hanging over this team if you're going to swing for the fences this summer. And if you miss, right, if you don't knock it out, well, you get to use all of that capital that you've built up, that war chest and the powder that you've kept dry, and you get to use it. You just get to use it on a different target. And maybe it pivots in the tier of player that they go out and sign. But I don't think it changes the identity of what ownership wants this team to be. Because I mean, honestly, like let's be real. The identity of this club is going to be driven by the owners. It's not going to be driven by us and what we want. It's going to be driven by what David and the Moss brothers want. And they want to build a Galacticos style squad. If I was building an MLS team, I would want them to look more like Philly and Seattle because I think that that's a model that works here. But if you want to be the international brand of the league, if you want to try and do something and risky, you got to do it the way that they're doing it. And that means, not being afraid to fail. And I don't think that they are. I think that even if we don't sign them, it's not a failure. The fact that the media cycle has had, Inter Miami and David Beckham, just spinning nonstop over the last 4 months has been good for the club and good for our profile. And it's going to be good for our negotiating positions with other players in the future because we're making a real effort to try and sign the highest profile player in the world. And that means something.
How long are we willing to wait? Though I'm just saying this season. Like, what do we do if he just stalls until the last day of the transfer window?
You
But
wait.
we can't sign anybody because we're waiting on his decision. Like, do you think the club would be willing? I would be willing to wait until the last day. That's me. I would be waiting until 11:59.
Well,
But
Listen,
and Messi, he is the caliber of player that, no, he's not going to be signing on July 31st, or whenever the last day of the MLS secondary window is. He's going to have a decision made well before then. He personally could have a decision made now. He could, be saying, I'm going to go to Barcelona, I'm going to stay at PSG, and have that personally made up. But a player of his caliber isn't going to kind of sit on his toes and, meddle over his offers until the very last possible second. He almost guarantee will have a decision made by by the time that transfer window opens. If he's changing clubs, he will be announced as a player by then. And if and even possibly earlier than that, since he would be signing on a pre-contract.
like this isn't the LeBron James decision, right? Like this isn't that. This isn't a player. This is Messi making a decision as what's best for him for the end of his career.
what's the
It,
LeBron James thing? Sorry.
are you okay?
I can't be bothered.
All right. Yeah, I'll debrief you on that later. But when LeBron came to Miami, it was the superstar, the player at the pinnacle of the sport, making a decision where everybody was in on him and saying, "I want to play here," right? And he could drag that out for as long as he wants. Messi can do whatever he wants. He could end his career tomorrow, and no one would say that it's a bad decision because it's his choice. He's had an incredible career, and any decision that he makes is going to be for himself. Um, so and I agree with Trav. I don't think he's going to drag it out, but he doesn't. He also doesn't owe us owe us anything if he doesn't want to tell us in advance.
Yeah, and mostly to kind of to wrap up, I think that in terms of Messi, whoever he's know well in advance, because the biggest part of all of it is they want to sell tickets well in advance. No club wants to know on June 30th that on July 1st Lionel Messi's going to be a player for your club, because they want that run up. They want to be able to say, oh look, we signed Lionel Messi. Come to our games, come to our preseason matches, all of that. So that's my thinking with it. But to transition to kind of wrapping up here, Miami now plays a poor Chicago side this weekend after coming off of a 2-0 loss against Toronto. They play Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. at Trav Stadium. You can catch it live on Apple TV MLS Season Pass for those who cannot be in attendance. It is I believe, giveaway night.
Did we lose Trav?
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him too. Well,
should I take his mound?
Up.
No, George, don't let him. Don't let
I
him
lost
take
the
them
World
out.
Cup to Lionel Messi, the GOAT. All right, that's enough.
You back,
Yes,
Trav?
I'm back. I forgot the Inter Miami app, Twitter. But yes, so Miami does play this weekend. No giveaway. The full giveaway will be on May. But to out here, let's hear some predictions. What is everybody predicting Miami does this weekend?
All right, who first?
I guess I'll go first. But we're going to be depleted. They're going to be depleted. I think it's going to be probably a 2-2 draw.
Okay, I guess I assume next. It is not going to be a pretty game of football. Both teams are losing their quote unquote top end talent. I do think the Heat will kill them because I think it's in the mid 40s in Chicago, and I think when you go from the 40s to the 80s in a day, you feel pretty exhausted after running 90 minutes. Last minute winner, Indiana Vasilev style, 2-1. I do think we concede one.
Who hits the winner?
Travis gonna love this. Benjamin Kremashi.
That's the name I wanted to hear.
Wow, you are so negative, Matthew.
What are you talking about? What, you think we're gonna win 5-0?
No, I think it's going to be a tete-a-tete kind of game, but there may be some goals scored. I think I'm looking at a 3-1 in our favor.
Who scores?
That is a good question. Depends on what kind of formation Neville comes out with. I don't know.
Shoot in the dark. Shoot in the dark.
Shoot in the dark. We could have a crazy Mota goal again, from long distance. We can have a Borgelin. Is he available, or is he out on international duty?
He may be available back from injury.
Okay, and Lassiter.
All right, I like it. I'm going to think that Miami manages a 2-1 win here. I think Stefanelli gets his first, and I think Bryce Duke gets another one in a Miami kit. So, I do think Miami manages to win this weekend. I do think that they are the better squad, even with some players out due to injury and due to international duty. But on that note, thank you again to everybody for joining us for this week's episode of Trav Chat. If are listening to this live, you can catch the replay on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you get your podcasts via the Inter Miami podcast. And if you are listening to this on the recording, well, welcome. Please join us next week at 8:30 on Thursday nights. We'll be returning to our normal slot, and join the conversation just like Albert and our editor Matthew were able to tonight. So we'll end this the way we end every single episode of Trav Chat with a good old Vamos Miami.
Vamos Miami.
Vamos Miami.
Vamos, Miami.
Thank you again to everybody for joining us, and we will see you Saturday night at Drive-In Stadium.